Good. Good. It's nice to see you.
You too.
What do you think?
Well, I just started it up with our handy dandy little picture.
Oh, good.
We're good. Are we up? Okay, we are currently good.
All right. We're live? Okay, fantastic. Good. Well, hello everybody. Good evening. My name is Harry Vogel. I'm the senior biologist and the director here at the Loon Preservation Committee. Wanted to welcome you all to our Thursday night Nature Talk series. A few words of introduction. Oh, no, watch the turtles. Okay. A few words of introduction about Loon Preservation Committee as we start here. Loon Preservation Committee was created back in 1975 because people were noticing that loons were becoming less common on our lakes. And so since that time, we have been working to recover this loon population, to measure the health and the productivity of loons throughout the state as indicators of environmental quality, the health of our lakes and ponds, and also just promote a greater understanding and appreciation of not just loons, but the larger natural world as well. So we've been working to do that through monitoring and research and management and education. One of our educational activities is our loon webcam. And I mention that today because that has been a great research tool. It's helped us to determine some of the factors that contribute to loon success or failure when they're on the nest. But we also broadcast that on our YouTube channel to the world. Bill Gassman is one of our super volunteers who's essentially leading that effort. We could not do this without Bill, so it's nice to have Bill in the audience. But the other reason why I wanted to mention it this evening is because before our loon cam is a loon cam, it's typically a turtle cam. So we have a whole bunch of turtles coming up, and before these loons get on top of it, we have a number of people that I'm sure tune in just to see the turtles, you know, and basking themselves on these nests. So there's a fascination and there's a connection there between turtles and the Loon Preservation Committee. And so with that, I'll introduce Chris Bogard, and she has been working for about 20 years now, I guess.
22, 23.
Right, 22 or 23 years. Rehabilitating turtles, and in any given year I understand you have sometimes 30 turtles that you'll rehabilitate and try and reintroduce into the wild.
That sounds like the most I've ever had.
Okay, yeah, well it's an impressive number, absolutely, and so we're happy to have you here to talk to us about turtles this evening, so I'll hand it right over to you.
Well, good evening, everybody. This is my second time speaking at the Loon Center, so I'm really happy to be back, and I'd like to thank Kelly for inviting me and thank everybody for coming tonight. I have a little bit of a different topic. As you can see, it's called Relocating Turtles. Should we or shouldn't we? And I've got a couple things that I want to say about relocation before I get into the presentation. And when I say relocating a turtle, I don't mean helping it across the road. That's not relocation. That's just helping it across the road, which is a wonderful thing to do. Helping it across the road in the direction it's going. By relocation, I mean when they get picked up and taken on a car ride and taken, it could be as little as 2 or 3 miles. Maybe as much as 5 or 10, maybe to Uncle Joe's farm pond that's 25 miles away. In other words, you have taken them quite a distance from their point of origin, where you found them, and I do consider 2 or 3 miles quite a distance. So that's what I mean by relocation. Regarding turtle conservation, but really this is more of an individual conservation tool. I want to say I'm not an opponent of it, but I'm also not a proponent of it. And tonight is going to show you basically all the reasons why it shouldn't be done. And I'm talking about, again, you pick them up in the car and you take them on a 5-mile car ride to Uncle Joe's farm pond. So I will begin. Kelly.
Try again?
Yay. These are the three most outstanding reasons why we shouldn't be doing that. And there actually is a fourth reason, and that fourth reason falls under the headline of genetics. And I'm not going to talk about that very much because I had to take a semester of genetics in college, and it was brain gymnastics for me. But believe me, genetically, even though they may look alike, they may be genetically different, one population from another. So biologists are also concerned about what is called genetic pollution. I'm going to obviously start talking about disease first, and I'm assuming this is maybe going to come as a bit of a surprise to all of you, but there are some new viruses emerging in turtle populations, and I'm talking wild turtle populations. Paul Gibbons probably has stated it best when he says emerging infectious diseases of colonians, and he goes down this whole list of things that are popping up more and more. When I highlighted something in the body, it's because I want to show how close to New Hampshire this particular state is. So most of the states that I've highlighted are states along the eastern seaboard. And that one, Washington, D.C., Maryland. This Rhonavirus, this is a biggie, and I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It is almost 100% mortality if turtles catch this disease. It seems, at least thus far that I know of, it has affected box turtle populations more so than any other turtle populations. But as you can see, it's 90 to 100% mortality. I believe it first showed up in fish and amphibians, and it's jumped species. Now it's showing up in turtles. The Rhonavirus is in the same, I'm not sure if it's family or genus, as Rhondavirus. And as you can see it, where it says it's well known for causing mass mortality events in fish and amphibians, and has been increasingly determined to be the cause of disease and mass mortality events in turtle and tortoise populations worldwide. There is right now no treatment for it. There's no vaccine. There's nothing that you can give them if they have the virus. They die. Anticipated future trends, not looking too great. As I've stated, it's capable of causing very high mortality, and wild populations, it's been seen in, well, go along the eastern seaboard, New York, Pennsylvania, and I believe Maryland. I think Maryland has had some box turtles that have shown up with Rhonavirus. The adenoviruses, again, another virus that is showing up in turtle populations, but this is all I could find on it, that it was found in a leopard tortoise in 2004. It's just something that's popping up more and more. These next few slides, it was a slideshow that was put together by a woman called Holly Niederreiter. She is a wildlife biologist with Delaware Fish and Wildlife. I accidentally ran into this on YouTube about 3 or 4 years ago. This was a 3 to 4 state study, and I could not find this again on the internet. So I can't remember what the other 3 states were, but obviously one of them is Delaware. So here's a study that in Delaware, well, you can read the stats for yourself. Note that the RV positive species in our region, which is Delaware plus the other 3 states I can't remember, almost all of those species we have here in New Hampshire. So this Rhonavirus is showing up in turtle species that we have right here in New Hampshire. And again, as I mentioned, it's jumped from fish and amphibians to turtles. Increasingly responsible for turtle die-offs. This is one reason why we do not recommend moving turtles from roads to safer habitats. And I know that when people do this, that when they find a turtle in the road and they pick it up and take it to Uncle Joe's farm pond, they have the very best intentions, and I know that, but it just may not be the thing to do. And that's just another one of Holly's slides, and again, she mentions, do not move amphibians and reptiles. So I'm going to go through, I'll go through it fast so it doesn't become tedious, but I'm going to show you more peer-reviewed journal articles talking about these emerging diseases in turtle populations, and all I'm doing is I'm just driving my point home, is that this is turning into an issue. Okay, Rhonavirus in Virginia turtles. And notice, we found evidence of Rhonavirus in CP picta. Does anybody know what CP picta is? Those are painted turtles. So Rhonavirus in painted turtles in Virginia. Another paper. And look at all the whoops.
Can you go back? Rhode Island?
Yeah, I mean, look at all the East Coast states. Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, Maryland, Pennsylvania. And that was in 2003.
No, since 2003 it says.
Or, yeah, since 2003. Again, just another paper, Rhonavirus in box turtles. And he mentions that they continue to be a substantial threat for free-ranging colonians. And just in case anybody's interested, I did do some research to find out if we've had any kind of outbreaks here in New Hampshire, and I could not find any information that we have. So thus far, I think New Hampshire is free and clear of any mass mortality events. This was interesting. Note the date on it, 2018, which is not that long ago, and some virus, they weren't sure what it was at the time, has been confirmed in a Canadian turtle. So it's traveled that far north. This is, Rhonavirus looks like a severe respiratory infection. Just, you know, crud coming out of their eyes and their nares. Eventually they do get lesions on the inside of their mouth. But that right there, his eyeballs are down there. That's actually where a turtle's ears are, and his ears are just all full of pus. This is a snapping turtle, and obviously pictures during a necropsy of the snapping turtle, but these are the lesions that I was talking about, all over that poor snapping turtle's tongue. Oops. FWC is the Florida Wildlife Commission. Notice the date on it, 2019. Now, in 2019, Florida is seeing some kind of a die-off of turtles, but they don't know what it is yet. It says a virus might be killing them.
Where's St. John's watershed?
East Coast.
East Coast. So, remember, that's 2019. This is happening in Florida. This paper, my vet sent to me this year, so this was published in 2022, and look at it. A novel group of viruses that is causing problems for turtles in Florida. And I can't help but wonder if this novel virus that they have now discovered is the same virus that they were talking about in this 2019 article. So that's all I have to say about diseases, and I'm sure everybody's heard enough.
Yeah.
So the other problem that was listed was, you take them to this new place and, oh, they're going to be safer. Are they gonna stay there?
Probably not.
We don't know. There really isn't enough research being done on relocation. And the research that has been done, the data is inconclusive. Part of the problem is when there is research on relocation, you know, you put a transmitter on them and follow them around, it's way too short. When you think that a turtle can live for a minimum of 40 years, one of these research papers that I got a hold of, it was a project done in Laos, and they were relocating aquatic turtles. They followed them for 3 months. And they got their paper published. I was a little surprised about that. And they did say in the paper that they realized that more monitoring is needed, but after 3 months, and they considered it to be kind of a quasi-success story. So not enough data, and the data is too short. What has been noted in the research that's been done is that relocated turtles, they have larger home ranges and they travel farther. They travel much farther than the native turtles do. And I actually am going to show you some of my data that I did on a wood turtle that had to be relocated, and you're going to see it. So that's one of the problems. And you know, when they move more, they possibly are exposing themselves to more danger, possibly exposing themselves to disease. As I mentioned, the relocation studies, they just don't follow them long enough. My personal feeling is if you're going to relocate a turtle and you want to get a good idea on whether or not it's adopted its new area, this is me personally, 10 years minimum that I think that they should be following, because they're so long-lived. If this was a gray squirrel that lives for 6 years tops out in the wild, 3 months would be fine, but these guys are way too long-lived. And what's also shown up in the studies is that who disperses and who stays put, it's very individualistic. And you know, researchers are scratching their head and thinking, well, why did these 3 turtles stay, and they've been here now for 7, 8 years, but you know, all the other ones took off. We don't know. And then again, the problems with them moving these long distances, longer than they would if they were in their original habitat, they're wasting a lot of energy. Do they even know where to find food yet? So if they're wasting energy, they're burning calories, and do they know where the food is? And again, increasing risk of injury because they're moving around more than they normally would. This is one of the best relocation studies I've run across, simply in terms of time. It was a 4-year study. And a bit of the background on this, the ICC, which is the Inter-County Connector Highway, Maryland decided that they were going to put this highway right through the middle of box turtle habitat, which of course means it went right through forest. And I think, well, I heard this through the turtle grapevine, but I heard there was a lot of public outcry about it. So the Maryland Department of Transportation, they did fund the research project that I'm going to talk about. And no, pay careful attention to, they're talking about the survival of the turtles during construction. And then I'm going to have a comment about that afterwards. So what they did was they divided the turtles into 3 groups. This big black outline, that's the study area. So there were box turtles that came right from in this study area, and those were called the on-site turtles. The off-site turtles came from outside the study area by, I think, around 5 kilometers. And then they had on-site turtles. They had like 2 on-site groups. The other on-site group was a group of turtles that kept going into, this is the construction, it's called the LOD, the line of disturbance. So we had 3 different groups of turtles, and I think truly the true relocated ones were the off-site turtles, because they were taken out of this study area and brought into it. So here's the movements. And remember, we talked about relocated turtles move more. Well, there's your blue, your off-site turtles. Those are the ones that were taken outside of this study area. And that's how big.
And I'm Bill Gassman, aka a Loon Cam operator. And tonight we're going to talk about the Loon Cam recap, which is still capping. So we'll figure out.
Hi everybody,
what's
I don't know what day I is.
Take a water break here.
Center manager, an LPC, I mean, executive director, whatever title
Oh,
you want.
apparently, it decided to pop up from
From
YouTube, the browser. I want to go away.
Sure, yeah.
Sorry, I don't know why that popped up on there, but.
It's okay.
So while we stop, so, I don't know, you're gonna get into like how many are you talking about and tracking?
I could, but I didn't want to go too in-depth into it. I simply wanted to show that what I consider the 2 relocations, because they came outside of the study area, travel further. But I can hopefully,
Do you also get into like, do they do the protective fencing to keep?
I wasn't going to bring that up, but actually, they did, and I believe it was partially left up to the workers that were doing the construction, and it was left up to the monitors, the biologists and volunteers that were watching the turtles. The first fence that put up was done very poorly. They were going under the fence into the construction area. And then I think around 2011, they finally put up a much more permanent barrier. It's fencing.
I can't really tell, is this like a water area?
No, this is, this is forest.
The whole thing's forest?
Well, this isn't right here.
Okay.
I'm not, that could be fields for all I
Okay, but
know.
it's not wetlands or?
No, it's not wetlands. And so, yeah.
And the road is, I know this is Maryland, so you probably don't know, but is this a raised road or it's level to the forest floor?
I'm assuming, because I don't recall reading anything that would answer that question, I'm assuming that it was level to the forest floor. Otherwise, why would they put the fencing in? So, so anyway, yeah, I just want to highlight, you know, going back to when you relocate turtles, they travel further. That can be more dangerous to them. So here's the off-site turtles. That is basically where they're moving around. And then these 2 dashed red and green lines are the on-site turtles. So the off-site turtles obviously do have a much bigger movement. And again, when I show you my wood turtle data, you're going to see exactly the same thing. One thing that happened during this study, which is going to connect with what we were just talking about, there was a Rhonavirus outbreak in the population, and I believe they lost 27 died from the Rhonavirus. And this, believe me, this came as a huge shock to them. So, you know, I was talking about how we have to be careful now because of the spread of disease. Yes?
I don't know anything about turtles, so do they get stressed so they're more apt to get the virus or not to be able to fend it off?
No more than any other
No, I
turtle.
guess what I'm saying, going through this kind of process, they're gonna be more stressed than they would be if it didn't occur.
I don't think stressed enough that it would have immunocompromised them to make them more vulnerable to the Rhonavirus, no. So some of the findings were, only 3 turtles were killed during actual construction on the LOD. They did, however, because of the poor fencing for the first couple of years, they had 30 turtles that were moved off of the LOD a total of 80 times. That's not 80 times 30, that was for 30 turtles, it was a total of 80 times. And I think that what attracts them to these open areas, females that want to nest, because there's this beautiful open area, probably with gravelly, sandy soil, possibly basking areas. So these open areas are very attractive to turtles. So that's kind of all I wanted to say about that. I didn't want to get too in-depth to it, just a study showing you they travel more.
Second. Sorry. This isn't working very funny tonight. Oh.
Want me to try it?
Yeah, go ahead. Why?
No.
That's not fucking embarrassing, yeah. Alright. Give it a try now.
Am I doing the right one?
There we go.
There we go. Okay, lastly, as far as turtle conservation and relocating turtles, this man that you see, his name is Dr. Bill Belzer. He was a professor at Clarion University in Pennsylvania, and he devoted his life to trying to repatriate, which means you're trying to put an animal back into an environment where it previously was, and relocate box turtles. And they were all box turtles that couldn't be taken back to their original home. It could be because nobody knew where they came from. It could be they were taken out of the pet trade. For whatever reason, these box turtles, we don't know where their original home was. So he thought maybe in the right circumstances, in the right habitat, maybe I can create a self-sustaining population of box turtles, you know, and create a population where there once was one. So I'm going to go through this real fast too. So he started all this in 1993. The McKeever Center is a nature sanctuary. He then moved it to Buttermilk, which again is another nature sanctuary. But he wasn't having very good luck at McKeever, and he thought, well, maybe 200 acres isn't enough. You know, maybe that's the problem. They were taking off. They were not establishing themselves there. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So then he moved it to Buttermilk Hills, you know, thinking, well, okay, bigger may be better. I don't think that things improved a lot. Too many of them were taking off. They would not establish themselves in this sanctuary. So in 2002, he decided, well, I'll start using head-started turtles. I'll use turtles that never had a home before. You know, these are brand new baby turtles. Head-starting them, you keep them for a year or two to get them big enough that you can keep them out of the mouths of most predators. That's what head-starting is. So we thought he might have better luck using head-started turtles. And gee, look at that, 2003, Rhonavirus emerged in his box turtle population. So by 2007, there's the data, 69% of the males and 36% of the females had wandered off-site. He did not have a lot of luck with box turtles. Now, does that mean that I can extrapolate that to painteds and snappers and woods and all our other species? You really can't, but it's important data. It's important data that at least makes us question whether or not we should be doing a lot of relocation of turtles. And then lastly, when these turtles are getting relocated, again, they got taken to Uncle Joe's pond. Are they in the correct type of habitat? Did they get relocated to the same type of wetlands that they originated from? Now, I've got these are 3 different types of wetlands. Can anybody tell me which one of those wetlands is the appropriate wetlands that you would put a wood turtle in?
The one on the left?
Anybody else?
Top right?
Okay. Yeah, it would be the one on the left. Wood turtles are like specialists when it comes to their habitat. They live only in rivers, brooks, and streams. They do not live in lakes and ponds and marshes and swamps. They may visit one as a stop-off point to get to somewhere else, but yeah, that is definitely wood turtle habitat. That is not. This is a swamp, this is a marsh. So not all wetlands are created equal.
What about acidity of the water and things like that?
Well, interesting, I'm gonna bring that up. Another thing is you would never want to relocate them into an isolated anything. Most turtles, if they can, if the environment is still there for them, they live in wetlands complexes. Turtles sometimes will hibernate in a different wetlands than they hang out in the summer, and then they may go to an entirely different wetlands to find a girlfriend. So they live in a complex of wetlands, not something isolated like this. I bring this picture up because I did get a call. There was a spotted turtle that was hit here on Pulpit Rock Road. Woman called me and she said, well, I don't think it's hurt too bad. She says, no, there's a pond real close to the road and I can put her back in there if you want me to. And well, of course I said no, but I'll bet you that was the pond that she was thinking of, and that would have been totally inappropriate. There's not a lot of vegetation in it, and it's isolated. So it's just a couple slides I'm going to throw out at you that I got from Fish and Game and UNH Cooperative Extension. But I just want you to see the forest through the trees here. Again, all the different types of wetlands that there are. Cold water, warm water. Again, a list of wetlands, and there's many different kinds. More wetlands, marsh and shrubs, scrub wetlands, peatlands, temperate swamps, northern swamps. Regarding your question about the pH of water, I don't know for sure how to answer that because I've not read any studies that talk about that specifically, but I can't help but assume and think that pHs of different wetlands are different from each other. And does that make a difference to the turtle that is living there? I'm sure it does. One thing interesting, I had a wood turtle from Lyme a couple of years ago that she survived her injuries and it was time to release her, and I don't live in Lyme, so all I can do is look at my maps, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes, the maps that I look at. And Lyme is bountiful with brooks and streams. And I'm like, oh my gosh, which one do I put her into? And so, of course, I called my buddy Josh at Fish and Game. He's our turtle biologist, and told him where she was found. And I said, could you please help me, tell me what is the best brook stream to put her into? And he got back to me and he told me where to put her. And he said something about, well, I picked that stream because, and he gave me a couple of reasons. And then he said, and because the slope is, and he starts talking about slope. How would I ever know that? How would anybody ever know that? So slope apparently makes a difference to them on top of,
Yeah, well, that makes
I'm
sense.
sure pH
You may
does.
not be able to navigate it.
Right. So I just talked about how I have to use maps to figure out where I'm going to release them. Yes.
Yeah, and also the running water. I mean, the running water's gonna be on the slope. So.
Well, true.
It could be temperature as well.
Right. But I would have never, I mean, unless it's really obvious, like I've got, a stream that's like this, and
Right.
I would not know how to determine slope in a stream. So it's just very interesting, these little things that we would never think about that really matter. When it comes time for me in the spring to release my turtles, this is one of the tools I use, and any of you can use it. When you go home tonight, if you Google Granite View, it'll come up for you. And it's really kind of a lot of fun. When it first comes up, over here in the corner, there is going to be a box, and that's where you type in your address, city, state, or maybe you would type in, you could probably just type in Loon Preservation Center and Moltenboro, and it'll come up. So after you've done that, then this comes up, all the layers, and you can just do all kinds of different things with the map. Now all this green that you're looking at, that's because I wanted to see the conservation in public lands. So it'll show you where all the conservation in public lands are.
What's a little marker designate?
That must have been something specific that I told it to go to. And so, just for kicks, I wanted to see what Moltenboro looked like. So, here's your town outline. I chopped you off a little bit in the south and a little bit over here. But all that green, that's all conservation land in Moltenboro. So you can, you can do some fun stuff with it. You can also tell it underwater resources. Show me the water. It will show you swamps, open water. Obviously, this is considered open water. This with the stripes is considered open water. The purple is more shrub wetlands. And if you notice, this is all conservation land, but you have a tool that you can tone that green down, because if you leave it that real bright green, you might have problems seeing like that marsh. So you have control over that also. You can also have it show you where are the trails. And that's what the trails come up like, kind of this dot dash line. And I'll tell you right now, Granite View does not know where all the trails are, because I've been to plenty of places that I had to do a release and I was looking for trails so I didn't have to bushwhack it through the forest, and it didn't show me any trails, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to bushwhack it. And I get to the place and there's tons of trails, but it knows some of them. Now I'm going to talk about some of the releases that I've done, a couple of turtles that I followed and what happened after release. This right here, okay, is anybody, are you familiar with Route 101 in the southeastern part of the state? Okay, Route 101 is a 4-lane highway, very, very busy highway. It's a very well-used east-west connector. So I'm driving down 101 one day, I'm going home, and on the north side of the road, he was still in the shoulder, I see this big Blandings turtle just sitting there, and he's facing 101. So of course I stopped, I pulled over, I picked him up. I set my odometer so that I would know how many miles east I was of the next exit, and then that's how I found my way on the map so I could see the area. Because from my vantage point, I mean, I'm standing on the interstate here. I saw maybe a little bit of wetlands down in here, but it looked like it was vernal. It looked like it was going to dry up eventually. But all of this, look at all of this is wetlands. It's over here. This is...
Where are you, near Packaway?
Pardon me?
Are you near Packaway?
No, that's not near Pawtuckaway. This is, I think, one of the best complex wetlands systems in the southeastern part of the state. Now, had I not done this and looked this up, I think the average person, I'm going back to relocate, should we or shouldn't we? The average person, they're going to see that turtle trying to go out to 101, and they were going to take him somewhere else. You know, he's never going to make it across 101, and you're right, he probably is not. It's impenetrable. But because I use these different maps, and that's my job, I need to do this. I don't expect the public to do this, but I'm just making the point that sometimes there is a really great wetlands
right there. You just need to find it and get them well away from 101. So here we are. These are all trails. These are all trails. So when it came time to release him, of course I want to get him as far away from 101 as possible. So I did release him up there. I got a transmitter from Fish and Game. I just kind of wanted to see what he was going to do because it was late. It was October. And I'm like, what are you doing? So I released him there, and he traveled about this far. Something he does not like about this northern portion of the wetlands, at least he doesn't like it in the fall. I went back in April, and he was still in the area. I could tell he was moving around, but he hadn't traveled any further south than that. I went back in May, and it was dead. The transmitter was dead. And I knew that was going to happen because Fish and Game had used it, and so whatever life I got out of it, I got out of it. But I do not regret my decision. Yes, he was found on a horrible, horrible highway, but to have taken him away from this beautiful complex of wetlands would have been awful. And I mean, and it was a male, and he was huge. It was an adult. I mean, he could have been 50, 60 years old. And to take him away from what he's known for all these years, so that was what I did.
Is there any transmitters that last for a month?
Well, this was a used transmitter, so that's why it was so short-lived. But the bigger the animal, the bigger the battery, the longer it will last. Probably, at least for the turtles I work with, I've had ones that were supposed to be good for 3 years.
Okay.
So yeah, you can get them a lot longer than just a couple months.
What would be the range of a turtle?
Again,
Like what does that represent, approximately?
oh
But
gosh.
like in the 30 years that they live,
Oh,
how far would they typically travel?
remember when I was talking about relocation in general and how dispersion is very individualistic, and you saw the small home ranges and movement of the study group.
So they don't move far.
They really, well, some do, some don't. Now, I was talking to somebody that tracked a wood turtle one year, and in one day he traveled 7 miles.
Wow.
So it's very individualistic, and I just can't answer that question.
So, what would be like the record? Would it be 50 miles?
Oh, no, not that, because they would, well, for me personally, based on what I've read and heard, 7 miles is the record for me.
In their life,
So,
No, in one movement.
one move.
Yeah, that was, no, this wood turtle did this in one day. So,
I want to look around.
yeah, you know, next May, I lost track of him. I don't know what happened to him. I hope he didn't go back out into 101, but I think I would have felt worse if I had removed him from this spot, because it's an excellent wetlands, it's his home, and he knows it.
In a few minutes.
That was just one shot I took of what some of the wetlands looked like, where he came from. Another situation, I just so happened, I had my little GPS device with me, and again, I'm going down 101, and there was a snapping turtle. It was probably about the size of a salad plate, and he actually was on the move. He was getting ready to go out, and so, of course, I pulled over real quick, got out, got him, got the GPS coordinate, got home, and again, from my vantage point, just standing on the highway, all I see is this, all I see is trees. I don't see any wetland anywhere. I put the GPS coordinates in the computer, and up pops this big, beautiful wetlands. Again, I did not see that this is a turtle that needed to be relocated. I'm not happy he went out into 101, and I can't guarantee that he's not going to do it again. But this is a nice sized wetlands. Rockingham Trail was right there for my convenience. And so I just walked down the trail, bushwhacked it just a teensy bit, and released him up north here.
Is there something in these two, I don't know how far these two areas from these two turtles are, because I live off of 101,
Oh.
so I live in Exeter. And, is there something to the south which would cause them to want to try to travel, you know, because this look, I don't know where this is, what town this is.
This, no, because I look for it, just if for no other reason other than curiosity.
You look for what?
Another wetlands, and maybe
Okay.
that's why he's trying
You
to.
do, you go and you look for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, in the case of the Blandings turtle, there is another wetlands. But there is no way that that Blandings turtle crosses 101 to get from one wetlands to the other, and he's gotta be 40, 50, 60 years old, and he is surviving to tell about
But
it.
that's the problem, because 101 isn't 40, 50 years old. So maybe it remembers in its lifetime that it wants to go back to some other.
But even once, they're not even gonna, well, maybe by some miracle, he could make it
No,
across
I'm
4
not
lanes
suggesting
of
it's gonna make it,
traffic.
I'm suggesting that's the mindset of the turtle.
Oh, yes, yes.
Is that it remembers 30 years ago before 101, that it was some beautiful place. I don't know.
That's certainly possible. That is certainly possible, because you saw what a vast wetland system that was, and I'm like, why would he ever want to leave this? So yeah, that's always kind of in the back of my mind, is in situations like this, why?
I have a question.
Yes.
Are these turtles ever moving at some other time of the year than, say, June, when they're looking to lay eggs?
A little bit, but nothing compared to the traveling that you'll see during nesting season. But come fall, so like maybe the end of August up into mid-September, some of them do move because they do not hibernate. And just in case you're interested, turtle hibernation is actually called brumation. It's called brumation, and it's got something to do because there's a physiological difference between what they do when they shut down and what a true hibernator's body does when it shuts down. So anyway, yeah, because some of them, they brumate in an entirely different wetlands than where they hang out in all summer. So yeah, it does pick up a little bit at the end of August, September. Okay, so those were two examples of turtles that I'm sure the average public would have relocated them, and I get it. But I hopefully, well, all I could present was, in my opinion, that would have been the wrong thing to do, because there was a good sizable wetlands that they could have been returned to. Now here's a case of a turtle that had to be relocated. This was a wood turtle. This is the Manchester Airport. This is 28, so lots and lots of travel there. Airport travel plus 28 is awful anyway. 28A, I believe that's Mammoth Road. Awful, awful, awful. And there's good old 101 up there. Now, I mentioned wood turtles live only in streams, rivers, brooks. So she came out of Cohas Brook. You can kind of see it, where Cohas Brook is running right in here. She is completely boxed in. There is no way that she can leave that brook and probably not get run over. This was a case that I felt she's got to get relocated. This is a death trap. So I discussed it with Fish and Game, because I would never do this on my own. And again, the turtle biologist helped me find a new spot for her along Cohas Brook. And
Another one along it?
there was another spot along Cohas Brook, because she came out of Cohas Brook,
And you put her back there?
but in a different spot.
Yeah.
Nowhere near here, not in there. Not in there. It was a totally different spot, but she was still in Cohas Brook. That is the day of her release. Oh, I put a transmitter on her, because this is a relocated turtle. I want to see what's going to happen. So there she is on the day of her release. The only way I have to tell on whether or not these relocated turtles are surviving is their weight. If they're gaining and gaining and gaining, as you would expect, then I think they're doing okay. They're finding food well, and of course, are they hibernating successfully? So that was what she weighed the day of release. This was almost at the end of the second year. We had to switch out transmitters because that one was getting ready to die. And at the end of the second year of her being out there, she's 432 grams.
Is that a good amount?
Yeah, yeah, she's gone from 333 to 4.
No, I saw that, I don't know. I
Oh,
have
yeah,
a
no,
reference point.
yeah, nope, I was real happy with that. Oh. So, I earlier talked about how relocated turtles, they travel much further than do native turtles. Now, I didn't put a transmitter on any native turtles here, but I kind of consider this some pretty big moves. So here, release, 712, 718, and then from 718 she goes all the way up here, 720, or no, up here, 718 to 720. Then she goes back down here. So you know, you get the point. She's really investigating her area. She's making some pretty long movements. This was a great site because that's a completely open site as you see it, and it is in between a housing complex and the brook. So they don't have to cross a road to get to this site to nest, and the brook is right along there. It's right along there.
And it makes it a good site because?
They can nest, and they can nest safely. Because think about it, or if you don't think about it next time you're out in your local conservation area, and you know, you're walking down this beautiful path, and it's forested, and there's these beautiful wetlands, and then think to yourself, where do these females go to nest? It's all forest. Where are the open areas? And I mean, we've got a lot of conservation land in the southeastern part of the state, and it's almost all like that. That I don't know where they go. I don't think anybody knows where they go to nest. And because of that, there are some ongoing projects. Massachusetts, I don't know how many they've done. I think Fish and Game is now on their second one. They have to get landowner permission, but they are creating nesting sites on people's property. Again, they get the landowner permission, lots of red tape I'm sure they have to go through, but you take down a bunch of trees, you open it up, and then they bring in bucket loads of sand. And this is proving, it's proving to work. The females are going there to nest, and they're not going out on the road anymore. This was just naturally there. So that was another great thing about this site. That was one time I found her in the brook when I was out looking for her. And that was one time I found her in the forest when I was out looking for her, and that stuff right there, I think she just got done eating a slug. That's what I think that is. So my intention was, I was going to follow her for 10 years. I only followed her for 3.5 because I guess I waited too long, and my transmitter was within a couple months of its expiration date, while the new transmitter was literally in the mail, on its way to me, the transmitter went out. And that was 3.5 years. And I can't tell you how many times I went back. I thought, well, maybe she really made a big move. She just took off, and I was going into some crazy places. And then when fall came, I went by a place I found her twice where she liked to hibernate, and I just would sit out there and play games on my phone or eat and hoping I'd run into her, and I never did. I never ran into her
But
again.
is your range, you have to be in a certain distance from?
Yeah.
So she could have moved outside your range?
She could have. She could have. But what gives me hope maybe is that she's going to stay. If you'll notice, okay, that was the year I released her, 2016. And then she went down here to hibernate in 17, but 2018 she went back to the same spot. She was hibernating in exactly the same spot. So that's my hope that maybe that's a sign that she did adopt it, but I don't know for sure. And then this is a story about a Blandings turtle that I did put back into her home range, basically where I found her, and something unexpected happened. I put a transmitter on her because she was a handicapped turtle. Because of her injuries, her left eye didn't work anymore. That's her right front leg. It was like it just was ripped off of her. And that's almost at the shoulder joint. My vet pinned it. It just didn't work. What happened was, she shut her shell on it, she would drag it behind her as she walked, and I cannot put her out into the wild like that, so the leg was amputated. Well, maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but believe me, there are three-legged and some two-legged turtles out there, and they survive. So this was no reason to euthanize her. But that's what all happened. Yeah, she just didn't get motion in her leg, and so, yeah, we had to amputate it. This is the road she was trying to cross. Wetlands on both sides. This is, I think it's Beaver Brook Conservation Land, but this is all conservation land over here. Now, I don't know what she was doing when she was hit on this road. Was she trying to go from here to here, or here to here? I don't know. But I decided when it was time to release her, and I put the transmitter on her because it was for the purpose of seeing, is she going to survive as a handicapped turtle, missing an eye and missing a leg? That was the purpose of it. So here's the road that you just saw, and this is all that conservation land. It is not conservation land over here, so of course I want to put her on conservation land. Now, look at the data on this, and look at the dates, and what do you think she's going to do?
Across the road.
Yeah, that was the way I had to interpret it too. You know, I thought, I mean, that's always kind of a conundrum when you don't know which side of the road to put the turtle on, because there's wetlands on both sides. But of course I picked, again, you know, I'm going to put her in the and that is not where she wanted to be. So on July 27th, I moved her. And
You moved it to the other side?
I moved her to the other side. And I, again, tried to get her as far away from the road as possible, so I put her way up here. Well, but this is where she just stayed, in this area right here. That's as far south as she ever went. So it's a little bit more of a condensed area that she stayed in on that side than it was on the other side. So it was good to put a transmitter on her because I did not think she was going to do that.
How long did she last?
That transmitter, that was a 3-year transmitter, and when I went out the second year to go look for her, whoops, oh, I know what I'm doing. Over here in this area, it turns into, there's a little bit of open land, and there's some shrubs, and then it's forest and field. I found her transmitter, but I didn't find her under a shrub, and there was like a form there, and there was water in it. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if the transmitter fell off her. I don't know if she was attacked and it was ripped off her. So it was another case of, I don't know what the final disposition was, but for that year and a half, she did okay. She was, you know, gaining weight, maintaining her weight. Lastly, the other problem when we relocate them, I had mentioned, have they been relocated to a place where they can nest? That's really important, especially when you're dealing with females. Well, what happens is when turtles don't get to lay their eggs, they literally rot inside of them. They don't reabsorb them. This is an article about actually captive turtle setups and how to create nesting areas. But here is a picture of a severely degraded retained egg. This is what a beautiful, healthy, just coming out of the turtle egg looks like.
So if they don't come out, does that kill them?
Well, you know, I have kind of wondered what's up with that, because the past 2 years here, we've had severe drought, And I've got a good friend of mine that has a wood turtle population he keeps a really close eye on. And there was no nesting. And I'm like, what do they do? Because they can't hold on to them. And so, again, I was talking to the Fish and Game turtle biologist about it, and he told me that he has seen turtle eggs in water, like just along the shoreline. So, you know, in a wild situation where they haven't been hit by a car and they're not captive, I'm hoping and I'm assuming they just dump them. You know, if for some reason they can't lay their eggs. So anyway, but to show you how fast they start to degrade, this was a painted turtle. She came into me at 6'9". I have to stabilize them. I chemically induce them. It's a drug that you give them to make them lay, contractions. And so that was the 19th, it was only 10 days, and they're already starting, I mean, that's calcification really is what that is, but they're already starting to go bad.
Well, what's the incubation?
Incubation is dependent on temperature, so it depends where they get laid, you know.
And they just normally leave them? They don't sit on them to
No. When that female turtle digs the nest and lays her eggs, she walks away and that's it. So those baby turtles, they are on their own when they emerge from the nest. And that's even if they don't get found out by a predator. Most turtle nests are predated upon. This was a case of, it was actually a young boy that called me, and he had picked up a female turtle, found her out in the wild, brought her home, put her in his aquarium, you know, had no idea that it was a female with eggs. Well, he called me whenever he did, end of October, and said, you know, gee, my turtle is sick, can you help me? And he just surrendered her to me because I told him that's what you're gonna have to do. And the minute I saw her and saw it was a female, I thought to myself, I bet she's got eggs and she couldn't lay them. And she died, as you can see, not too long after I got her. And I necropsied her, and that's what her eggs looked like inside of her.
That might have killed her, you think?
Oh, that did kill her.
Oh, that's what I was trying to ask. So it will kill them if they don't?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
But I don't want to say that will happen to, I guess I'm trying to draw a distinction between wild turtles and captive turtles. I mean, even though this was a wild turtle, when that person picked it up and brought it home and made a pet out of it, it is now a captive
Yeah,
turtle.
no, I get that.
So, and this was another case. It was a young kid, found a painted turtle, brought it home, made a pet out of it, started getting sick. He calls me because he wants to know if I can help him. And again, you know, I told him, well, you've got to surrender the turtle to me, and that was fine. She came in 11/7, died the 18th. I necropsied her, and that's what her eggs look like.
But you don't know if they also have these infectious diseases.
They did not show any evidence of it. Now, it could be, infectious diseases could be in such an early stage that you can't tell, and sure. But to just look at the condition of their nares, their eyes, their mouth, I didn't see anything. This is a Blanding's egg, came in 626. She would not lay that last egg. She would not lay that last egg. So I had to bring her to my vet, and he's very talented, and he didn't have to do surgery to get at him. But well, by this time it was really low in the pelvic canal. It was like almost at her rectum. And so he just puts his 2 fingers in her, we'll call it her rear leg armpit areas, and he just slowly palpated it out of her. It was really cool.
And the turtle's okay with all that?
Well, no, not really, but you gotta get the egg out, or, you know. But that's what her egg looked like after being in her a couple of months. And that's the end of the show. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
So, my neighborhood is in the Southeastern Land Trust, so not too far from 101.
Oh.
And, so abutting my neighborhood, I don't know if the pond is in the trust or not, I guess I have to look at the maps. So I guess in June or maybe I can't remember, as I was turning into my street, there was a turtle right in the middle and I don't know enough about. So I didn't want him or her to get run over, so I just pulled my car over, looked for something, which I didn't have in my car when I got and I just prodded it. I didn't really care what way it went.
Right.
I didn't really relocate it, but I tried to I guess aggravate it enough to get it out of
Get it
there.
moving.
Is that the right thing that I did? Because I think somebody else would turn the corner, it was right on the corner of, I live off of 111, and it probably would have gotten run over, I think, if somebody.
Could you tell what direction it was going, or
Well, I
was it just?
assumed it was coming from the pound, so there's a pound in the corner
Yeah.
here, and then it's, our neighborhood's more uplands, I guess. But on the other side, as you've been talking, I'm thinking, there's a lot of wetlands on the other side, on the south side of 111.
I think that you did the best that anybody could
She
do.
I prodded her, she didn't go to the pond, she went to my neighbor's house and she just crawled. It was a very hot day in June, I think it was those really heat waves. And I went into the shaded area.
Yeah.
But I don't know that my neighbor had any wetlands, like something that she could drink water or anything.
Right, right.
I don't know what happened to the turtle, but the other thing I was just thinking of, so we're on the north side of 111. On the south side, the train, the Amtrak, because I hear it all the time, and that's where, of course, they put the train tracks, and there's a lot of wetlands in there.
Yeah.
I just wonder how many are probably getting run over on the tracks,
I don't care to think about things like that. I see enough broken bodies and.
I mean, I go on the road that crosses the train tracks, I've never seen any, so I'm hopeful, but,
Yeah, yeah,
It just seems like the train track, again, like you were saying, it's like the 101, they're not raised.
right.
It's not like it's a bridge.
Well, if they're not raised, then maybe the turtles can easily go over them should they want to go from point A to point B and the railroad, the tracks are, I did bring, in case none of you have ever seen, does anybody here know what our state endangered turtle species is?
Spotted turtle?
Close. Because we do have a state endangered turtle, and it is, oops, not that one. It is the Blandings turtle.
Is that the case also in Massachusetts, do you know?
I am not sure.
Because I think that is the case, or it was a few years ago, I think.
Now this is a female, and I wouldn't say she's full grown. I think she's still got some growing to do. And I'm wondering, but Blandings turtles, the real distinctive characteristic about them is that they have a yellow throat and neck. I'm not sure if she's gonna stick her neck out, so can you kind of see her yellow throat and neck? But they, yeah, I don't even think she's full grown yet. She's definitely an adult, but I think she's gonna get a little bit bigger. And you can see the little flecks that they have on their shell. But sometimes people confuse these with spotted simply because they've got little dots on their shell. But no, Blandings are the only turtle that we have that have got that yellow throat and neck.
And why do you think they're having such difficulty?
Habitat loss.
Versus all the other turtles are not having that?
Oh no, we've got, let's see, Blandings are endangered, woods are threatened, spotteds are threatened. Do we have one?
And is it throughout the whole state or in pockets?
No, it's throughout the whole state. So that is a Blandings turtle.
No.
And then I've talked kind of a lot about wood turtles. And they only live in brooks, rivers, and streams. And this is a wood turtle. And can you see the orange?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that just incredible? I marvel at it. Every time I'm like, wow.
So are you taking care of these because they're ill or what's?
Well, actually, that Blanding's turtle, she has an issue. I'm hoping to release her next spring. She needs to see my vet, so she's a rehab turtle. I'm really not supposed to bring rehab turtles for show, but,
We won't have.
yeah,
We're
don't
glad
tell.
you did.
This wood turtle, remember all the stuff we talked about tonight, disease and, what happened to her was she was picked up by a hiker. The hiker brought her home, was gonna make a pet out of her, and housed her with her other turtle, who unfortunately was a leopard tortoise. Leopard tortoises they're not even from this continent. So she has now been exposed to an exotic turtle species, and because of that, she can never be put out into the wild. Because at the time this happened, and I contacted my vet, and I told him what happened, and I said to him, you know, tell me what tests need to be done. If it's gonna cost $5,000, I'll contact Fish and Game, and maybe they'll help me pay for it. But what do I need to do to make sure she's not gonna spread something to a wild population? And he said, there's diseases out there we can't even test for yet. So she is a perfectly healthy, reproductively mature female that can never go back out into the wild again. And that's really sad,
Yeah.
you know, it's really
How
sad.
do you keep them separated, all your turtles?
They just all have their own
Separate pens?
Rubbermaid containers. Now those are for the rehab turtles. The ones that I have permanently, and you know, she's one of them, she's an education turtle. She lives in a 6-foot by 4-foot indoor enclosure. And in the summer, I set up my deck with a bunch of fake plants and lots of shade areas. And she gets to spend the summer outside on my deck. You know, it would be nice if I could build something in soil for her, but I live in a condominium.
Oh my God.
And I can't do that.
Oh Lord.
So, but she gets to spend her summers outside, so.
So do turtles, I don't know much about them, so you have them for a length of time, they know you and they're comfortable with you, do you think?
I think that most of them are, yes.
Versus like when you first get them, are they more freaked out about it? They don't know you, they don't know humans?
You can definitely see the signs of stress, but yeah, I think the longer that they're with me, and that really doesn't take too terribly long. You know, maybe after about a week, I think they're feeling a little bit more comfortable with me. However, this one, I've had her now at least 10 years, and she still wants to bite me. She wants nothing to do with me. It's just, yeah, she just has not adapted well to being a captive, and
Why are you treating me like this?
yeah, really, I
don't
don't,
understand.
yeah, I bet
Well, I was
that's,
gonna say, if she was in the wild, what kind of track, because you're keeping this, not critical, but small container, and she would be able to go miles and miles and miles?
if she wanted to, yeah.
Yeah.
And her days would be fulfilled with mating and nesting and swimming and basking and looking for food and hiding from predators and, so, you know, when you've got indoor enclosures for captive turtles like this, you do try to enrich their environment. But, I mean, nothing compares to life as a wild animal.
Yeah.
So,
So you try to relocate them, like rehab them, and then we put them out back out?
well,
Except for this one?
except for this one, yeah.
Okay.
So, that is a wood turtle.
Interesting.
Oh, does anybody have any more questions?
Yeah, I have one question. Is anybody doing any research on places where there's a lot of turtle traffic during the nesting season, and maybe the route across the road could be changed, like an underpath or something like that in there? I mean, I'm thinking of places like Bean Road, where
Like what?
Bean Road in Center Harbor. I mean, if the turtles just get massacred
Yep.
on that road.
Yep, I've got, I live in Fremont and we've got a road, every town has at least one of those roads. Am I still being aired? Oh, crap.
You should watch your say.
Yeah.
You can talk if you want.
End the talk.
I think that would be better than lovely if something could be done about that, like you mentioned, culverts, something to go under the road. Or, I mean, forget the road being completely rerouted, that's never gonna happen. But it's just not gonna happen, it's too much money. You know, like to build something under the road that maybe they might use. That's also something that it currently is being researched, is will they use culverts? I think that what I find more frustrating than what you just mentioned is new development that bisects the wetlands. It's like we all know by now what these roads are doing, but yet as we continue to build, we continue to put roads right through wetlands. I don't understand it. So with respect to being able to do something about that, I don't think there is. I really don't think there is. In my town where there is this one road, I won't say the name, but there's this one spot because there's wetlands on both sides. So I went in with a friend of mine and bought some really nice turtle crossing signs, and they were professionally made, you know, they're really nice signs. And I've got one at each end of the wetlands so that, you know, traffic going both ways sees them. And I've been doing this for 3 years now, and I go and kind of monitor it in the summer, like maybe I'll go out 4 or 5 times and check it. I'll walk up and down the road to see, and I have never found less than 4 dead turtles in between those 2 signs.
Well, I've probably taken 5 turtles off that road a year. I mean, if I'm seeing that many, when I only travel it 3 times a week or
I
something.
know.
How many are going across?
And it's so sad because eventually what's gonna happen is so many adults are gonna get killed that the population is no longer self-sustaining. The turtles are just, they won't be there anymore. They just won't be there anymore.
So I apologize, I came in a couple minutes late, so I didn't really hear how long you've been doing this for,
About 22 years.
and how do you get funding, like by grants?
No.
You're just doing it out of the love of the animal?
Yes. Well, almost all of the rehabilitators in the state, we do not get funding from Fish and Game. We don't get funding from anybody unless, yes, maybe you might write a grant. Some rehabilitators do have a pretty good online presence. You know, they've got a name to their facility, and you know, you get into their site and, you know, you can donate via PayPal or whatever. But as far as, you know, getting paid like you would with a job, no.
And how many people in your networking are doing this across the state?
I think that New Hampshire has about, we don't have very many rehabbers actually, I think there's about a dozen. If you were to Google New Hampshire Fish and Game, up at the top are some links, and one of them is wildlife, and you will see a drop-down menu, and it'll say wildlife rehabilitators, and you can find that list there. So, and I'm talking, this is birds, mammals, reptiles, this is all the wildlife in the state.
12 for the whole state of all animals?
Yes,
Oh my lord.
I know.
So as far as turtles, are you one of the only ones?
I was the only rehabilitator in the state that worked only with turtles, because that's all I work with, for a long time. And this year, they're a married couple, and this year they have just gotten their permit to rehabilitate turtles. So.
So do you ever work with universities or to, because they could maybe give you some funding if you work with the students to educate them, if the
No,
biology
and
departments?
I actually think Fish and Game does most of those kinds of things. Like I know when they're doing field studies in the summer, they do get students from UNH to come help them. I don't know what the situation is, if it's donated time and they're paid or whatever, it doesn't matter. But, you know, as far as working with the universities, I think Fish and Game.
Is it very large, like you kept saying, well, I contact Fish and Game? Is there a big department there, like when you say you contact, there's like 1 or 2 people? Like you have to get permission to do all this kind of stuff? Or...
I think the non-game portion of Fish and Game is smaller than the game division. I believe they've got, you know what, I don't know how many wildlife biologists, they've got maybe 4. But yes, some of the stuff, like if I'm gonna relocate a turtle, well, and especially a listed species, yeah, not only am I required by their rules and regs to get their permission to do this, but I also think it's important for them to know
where the turtle is.
well, where the problem areas are. It's important for them to know, hey, we've got a population of wood turtles here that part of what I guess used to be their home range is now a death trap. So it's important for them to know that. Because